So, welcome to the 2 month review, the weekly podcast brought to you by Open Letter at the University of Rochester, where we talk about books, have fun with them, analyze them. We are now in our 25th season, and right now we are talking about Empire of the Senseless by Kathy Acker. I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books, joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox, and Kaya Straumanis, senior editor at Open Letter and translator from the Latvian. I want to start this actually in a very serious, not so fun note is that I just want to mention that the translator author Tim Moore died this past weekend. He was a friend. He died at the age of 55 from, I believe, pancreatic cancer. He was a translator of many books, including Charlotte Roche's Wetlands and Wrecked. But I knew him first when he translated Dorothea Dickman's Guantanamo for Soft Skull, which won the inaugural Best Translated Book Award prize. He also used to work at Playboy and was like the literary person there who like hooked me up with their whole scene and was like a really remarkable dude to hang out with. He was a DJ. He wrote about the punk scene. He did a book Burning Down the House. He was very like influential in a lot of ways and a good friend to a lot of people. So it's very disappointing that he passed away, and just wanted to take a second to like acknowledge that and his contributions to the world of translation over the past 20 years.
Yeah, I
Moment of silence.
yeah.
I was gonna say, we're doing a moment of silence, or
We're
oh,
good.
okay, no,
The Cardinals just won their game too, so I'm good. I'm ready to rock and roll with this motherfucker. Let's do this. So yeah,
well,
anyways.
sorry to hear that. Obviously, but man, sounds like he, for as far as like the literary life goes, sounds like it's very full and made good use of his time. Something
Yeah.
that I want to be, I'm inspired to be better at, actually. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
He was a very good dude, very good dude, and very,
really
very
sorry.
kind. So alas, he's gone, but not forgotten, and his books live on. There's a lot of them from Europa editions by Alina Bronsky, if you want to check that out too. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
Speaking of sorry and forgotten, how about Kathy Acker's book?
yeah, out of the limelight. I had lots of things I wanted. I have a lot of like housekeeping at the end of this, even after you have to leave, Brian, that we can talk about other podcasts, other things that are going on,
Sure.
whatnot. However, like we should probably dive into it. This is my favorite section that we've read so far, hands down.
Really? What made this your favorite section?
Well, MK Ultra. MK Ultra is
Okay.
key.
I
Like
know, I know you're like a coast to coast person, right?
hells yeah. I was an addict to Coast to Coast. If I were like a little bit more rural, I probably would have been like into the Rosicrucians and into like some sort of weird ancient alien bullshit and been like a frequent caller into that program. 1,000%.
Kai, did you do any coast to coast? Was that on your radar, or is that a older reference?
No, I think I would be what falls into the category as baby when it comes to this.
Okay.
Um, so
Right?
no, but I've
Are you?
heard plenty talk about
Yeah,
it, and I
yeah.
am acquainted with it, yes. But I
Gotcha, gotcha.
would not have had the pleasure of knowing to call in or listen.
It's like if Ancient Aliens met Loveline, like that was coast to coast. It's like
Yes.
super random call-ins. 9 times out of 10, it was rural people being abducted by aliens. But any type of possible conspiracy theory you could think of, the moon is hollow, Planet X,
Well, the Earth
uh,
is hollow
liz
too.
lizard people. Like there's
Lizard people
always
are there.
I mean,
somehow
those
it's
are those are real.
always
On the other hand, Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
Also super fun.
yes.
That
That's what
that
I
Also,
thought.
was I was around for that.
that was wonderful. That was wonderful. So I
All
just
right,
double
so
checked.
MK Ultra, go ahead.
Oh, I just double checked, and Paul Giamatti is starring in the Art Bell biopic that's being made now. This is
Hell yeah.
from February 10th, 2025. Hearing that Amazon and Warner Brothers, among others, have put in bids for a pitch that's making the rounds from the Radio Silence team with Paul Giamatti attached. That would be a biopic about the late paranormal DJ Art Bell, who would broadcast his radio show from his home studio 65 miles west of Las Vegas. Said that all the time, screening unscreened calls on Coast to Coast AM. You west of the Rockies? West of the Rockies, you're live on Coast to Coast with Art Bell. What do you got for me? There'd always be someone who'd call in about like the computers becoming sentient too. That was a good common one. I remember the best show though was the predictions for the year 2000. Listen to it on like New Year's Eve, driving home from somewhere, and like my parents, and it was like, what's gonna happen in the year 2000? It was like wacky as shit, man. It's so good. Y2K was bullshit compared to these people, but yeah. So MK Ultra, I love. What did you guys think though? I also really like the freedom and the revolution parts of this. It sets forth our pathways of like the piracy and being a pirate and motorcycles as like the two ways of like moving towards freedom. This one is a lot, I think, more of what we were talking about last week, where the book starts with like the taboo world and trying to destroy it. Then, like, when you don't have taboos, they sort of recreate themselves. And is there a pathway to escape? And we get motorcycles and pirates like that. I really like anything revolving around like the government trying to shut down rebels because that feels very of the moment. Except for you,
I,
Elon, you can eat shit. You
I feel
lost,
like
motherfucker.
Such love from Wisconsin.
that
Dude, I
that
saw
picture
this.
of that picture of him with the cheese hat on is gotta be like these like between that one and what's his face in Greenland, JD in Greenland, squinting with his arm up. Like there's these are like I want to these are like posters I want to have. Like this is the absolute. It's almost like AI generated lunacy, but they're real pictures.
It is white guys trying to white guys so hard.
It's where I want body shaming and like look shaming to be a little bit more acceptable in relation to these people specifically. I want to just be able to make fun of the way they look without that being like a double-edged sword or like double standard. But those people look like fucking fools. Like if you look at these
I don't
people, you can't believe that they're real people because they look like fucking fools.
I don't care about the politics, left, right, or center. I just like the JD Vance memes. I don't care who you are. Those are fantastic
The
and
big
they're very
fat gerbil.
entertaining.
His face gets rounder and rounder.
The best. I saw a grift from Elon today that I didn't know about. His super PAC owes $5 million to various people because they had a scheme where you got paid $100 to sign a petition arguing for what was it? It was for free speech and gun rights. And then if you got someone else to sign the petition, you would also get $100. So the people would do this, and then they didn't get paid for those extra petitions. And this is, I believe, what's called a pyramid scheme. But I mean, I'm kind of not up on my grifts, but it seems like a pyramid scheme. And why does our government allow this? I don't, that's not, that's not. What did you think of this book? Well, I mean, this section is very anti-government, so maybe ties in, but what are you guys up on for this? Where are you feeling? Brian?
This one, it kind of started to remind me of there was like this vibe in the 80s. And you would see it within like counterculture in the 80s. Like something like the animated film Heavy Metal, for instance, where it was just like, what the hell is this? Like, how does this exist? And it was almost as if it was like a revolt of like Disney stories or something. Like, I want to make an animated one, but I want like people on motorcycles. I want space pirates. I want everybody having sex with each other and then shooting each other. And then like, I want people wearing chaps. And I want her having high heels and having like a laser pistol on her side and a big tattoo of a snake on her tits. And just, can you animate that? Like, can I? I already have. Are you kidding me? Look at my notebook. I'm like, when I'm reading like the energy and the bizarreness, but then like the rawness that you have in this section, it really taps in to like, and you'd see it in different media, but I think it really taps into something like this. It's basically like pushing back against just Reaganomics and Pepsi Cola gone awry, and you know, uh, nuclear waste getting dumped into the rivers, and like there was like kind of like that countercultural movement, and I think you really start to sense that in in this part of the story in particular.
Kaya?
I am just exhilarated that this section went by very quickly.
I see. I think that
Get
this
it
is like
over
the most like
Get it over with.
baseline. Like this is almost too straightforward. But I loved it because it also I'm looking through my notes and there's like a ton of stuff about liberty, all this stuff about like the guy goes to prison. They're like, I have to question,
The
like, did I really,
dreams.
yeah, did I really kill because I was poor and of like, bad background? And like all these like the way that like there are narratives created for like why people act certain ways and who's going to be the bad ones, why you're going to prison, all that's like baked in here. The MK Ultra stuff is really interesting because MK Ultra is like there's ways in which like, it can be expanded out into like MK Ultra is controlling my brain right now, sort of paranoid theories. But like it was a real thing. Like it's totally documented. There were a lot of like tests that were done on unwitting participants. There's a new movie by Errol Morris. There's one called Wormwood that involves MK Ultra, but the new one on Manson also involves MK Ultra.
And it would not have come out if it wasn't because of New York City. It all goes back to New York City, like, just like this section here. If that person didn't jump through a window in their underwear,
Dropped, dropped, dropped
was
from the
that?
window,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a
dropped
whole
out the
like
window.
that's a whole
Yeah.
nother rabbit hole to go down about the of how they even found out
But it does. But in
about MK Ultra. But
Yeah, absolutely. And like the all the LSD tests, but what it points to in here, the section that they're talking about is right near the beginning of like in the printed book, I think it's like 170 something. But anyways, it has a long section about like, well, after the Nuremberg trials, you weren't allowed to drug people without telling them first. And the CIA is like, fuck that. We need to know what happens if you're drugged. We're gonna test our own people. And then they're like, well, this isn't working so well because we've tested everyone and everyone's already on acid. Like, this is not helping us. And so they're like, who else can we test things on? And this is like such a common trope in American history. Like, I've just listened to a Behind the Bastards 2-part episode on the blood transfusion problem from the Arkansas prison system where they needed to get blood products. So they like very griftily took blood from prisoners. Even though it was infected, they infected all sorts of things and they'd sell this blood for profit. And we're just like, well, you're incarcerated. What are you going to do? And like that's the CIA MK Ultra viewpoint that's produced in here is like, well, we'll just take advantage of the people who are the most marginalized. They're not going to be able to complain. We can just drug them. They don't need to know. And like that element is so horrifying and also so actually true. And like in the book is like another cause for like, are we free? No. How do we get free from this then? If anyone can pop up
like,
and be your CIA doser.
or even just like within certain communities, there's high distrust for doctors because of, you know, what
Yeah.
was it in the military in Muskegee, I
Yep.
believe it was. That's come out now. Um, Apparently the government's willing to do bad things
Yep.
to
No,
people. And it
no.
and it's and it sounds like, oh, that's something that Stalin would do. That's something the Nazis would do, but it's like, no, that's something a lot of people do apparently.
And they didn't just come up with the idea on their own. Like they're
Yeah.
taking it from other people's books too.
People in power will do any
But
of that.
it's kind of interesting because like right before the MK Ultra, she's almost kind of alluding to, like just before that with Operation Paperclip.
Comes to NASA and helps
And
become the father of space medicine.
yeah, and how do we get the Nazis that we like over here before somebody else gets the Nazis? Let's get the good Nazis. Which
Spoiler.
that's a
And
yeah.
this is I thought this would be an interesting topic for this too, is like MK Ultra was designed to find safe ways to cause total human amnesia. And I think that that's like part of what hints at the place the meeting point between paranoid like reactionary nature and Brave New World, where like we are anesthetized and like the government wants you to be forgetful, anesthetized, like whatever, because then you're in control. And so like this the in some ways going back to our argument from last week, maybe the book is like intentionally not allowing that. Like you can't just like become immune because the more that you are immune and just watching your TV is it makes it easier for Elon to go fuck the NEH.
Yeah. To that, I think a little to that point, Chad, when you were saying a few minutes ago that to you this seemed like the most straightforward section, I think there is a little part of that I was picking up on when reading. I will say that I didn't let that trick me. Because I know there was a moment where I was reading and I thought to myself, if the if the rest of the book preceding this had been exactly like this, it probably would have felt just as light. But at the same time, and again, going to last week where we were talking about I mean, just talking about our differences of opinion on this book, I I think I would have not liked it in a different way if the whole book had been like this section, because I do recognize the importance and the influence and influences of and on Kathy Acker, and I wouldn't want the whole book to be this section, regardless of how much quicker it went. So I do just want to say that I think I don't want to say that there's like a false sense of familiarity and being able to read it more quickly, but I am glad that this entire book is not like this. I enjoy not liking it for the reasons I don't like it. I don't want
You
new
don't want
reasons.
that. You don't want like the part that like you could like to be the main book.
I didn't, yeah, no, I didn't say I didn't say I like this part. No. I think it would be boring if the whole thing were like this section. And I just want to say that that goes to recognizing the recognizing that there's a lot of positive in Kathy Acker's writing, and it would be boring as fuck if the whole book were just this.
The other part that I really like to center in on this kind of like reestablishing of control, that you if you erase all the preconceived norms and taboos that are instituted within families and within like that part of society, get rid of all of that. You think you're free, but then the government's going to pop up, and the other people that pop up to take things over. There's two other loci that are mentioned here. One is the rich and real estate, and the other is language. The rich one with real estate goes back to what you said, Brian, about New York City. Like there's the several things of like they've already bought up all of New York City. There's no place for us. And we've seen this like now like so extreme. This is the like she's writing this at the beginning of the savings and loans and scandal, and the way that like property became both like very heavily like bubbled as an economy, but then also like weaponized against certain groups of people to a pretty extreme degree, so that the wealth transfer becomes like enormously one directional, right? Like that's all kicking into place. But I love the very particularly the part on I'm reading the ebook, so I don't really know. For me, it's like 193 where the daddy robot is talking to the guy that was arrested, Sinbad the sailor.
Question mark me?
Question mark me. Love it. So
Yeah.
question mark me. You're Mr. Tagglepuss, and whatever I am, I'm not human. Whatever human is, it's not human. We live in New York City between people who own most of the money in this world and people who own so little they're not human. If I'm not human, Dad, am I able to fuck? Daddy, robot. That's right, son. You're too fucked to fuck. That's what being unhuman means. I think that that's really part of this that I like too, in terms of like really like look or not doesn't like do like a intellectual deep dive into like how you know the transfer of wealth has impacted like the lower classes, but it just does it. It's like, yeah, no, that's true. Like there is no way to rent things in New York City at points in time if you're not like a trust fund kid, and if you're getting whatever, you're living with rats and you're not human. And then on this level, like the fuck, I think in this case is like pleasure. Do you get to have that pleasure? And it's like, no, you can't even connect with another human being. They've destroyed you so thoroughly in terms of like your livelihood and ability to like survive, that your enjoyment with another human being in a physical way is like also being negated on some level.
Yeah, that's on 155 if you're following along in the print version.
Perfect.
And
I
it's
know.
interesting the way this ties into the page before, right? Because just after that, because that's who a man is. A man is someone who goes after everyone and everything he wants. Men do not need permission.
Andrew
This
Tate.
is why, yeah. And then if you go just before that on 152, when they realized that all women are sex maniacs, they decided they had to control women. This was the beginning of patriarchy. So it's just kind of like having a play with the word fuck with
Mm-hmm.
men there later. But um, yeah, I mean, she brings up taboo in this one. She brings up like you were talking about New York City. She's bringing up uh, essentially the gentrification of it. And then she starts playing with these triangles that I thought was really interesting of like in Harlem, black people hate
Yeah.
Jews because Jews own the land. Jews hate, and there's the reason Jews hate these people. Blacks hate the Arabs because Arabs started the slave trade, and like you start seeing these like vicious like feedback loops of hatred in these in like in every like cross section of the city and every strata. It's just like this descending into like chaos, eventually just anarchy and destruction.
That part ends. So it goes like Harlem is a holy trinity. Harlem, the black hates the Jew for good reason. The Jew owns black property. Harlem, the black hates the Arab because Arabs started the black slave trade. Broadway, in the center of Harlem, people eat drugs and drugs eat people. The cops control the drugs. The clamp comes down. Broadway, in the center of Harlem, festival of police clubs. Whenever I see there's coffins. Then this part, though I'm not black, Harlem, I know your rancor. I know on what your hatred's fed. This is because I'm Arab and I'm female. I'm going to tell you something. Every time there's a case of hunger, someone's hungry. Soon there's going to be a cataclysm like 1,000 stomachs, which are holes or horrors. Anytime there's just one prison, soon there's going to be more than double violence outside that prison. It can't be vengeance, it's cause and effect. Connections, connect fists. There's no pendulum swinging because the poor swing lead pipes. Under your concrete, urban America, the piles of shit in the sewer pipes around which the icy air has put its arms, the only physical affection left in disease, are so numerous that the shit's going to burst through the concrete and hit the fans, the winds of history. Even the steps of the whites are lost in the winds of perfumes. The rich know nothing. Strangers to the world they own, themselves winds of perfumes. And then I like all Arabs know that stranger equals evil. But that's like part of what you're saying too, where it descends, like exactly what you're saying, descends into like that violence and the outpour and the rage that all these like ways of like hating within yourself just build down into like the shit that has to explode. There's so much anger at that base. Which is like also a Pynchon thing, like in the Gravity's Rainbow bit of like shit and money and what is it? Shit, money, and God are all tied together as one. And you gotta go down that toilet. That
Yeah,
one's a
and
stretch.
and again, like I don't know the publication date of Watchmen, but it feels so
84.
similar. What's that?
I think it's 84.
84? It feels so similar to the opening, like the opening panels of Watchmen with Rorschach
86.
looking down at the city, right? And it's disgusting and it's filth and it's all going down like look up and save me, and it's like no, like it's like okay, I don't know if I'm ready for this. How long is this going to be? Oh no.
I think one of the things that I really liked about this is where it starts to lean into like the later on parts about her like being a pirate or being a motorcycle rider. We can talk about that in a minute. But that this is where it starts to introduce the idea of really wanting to be an outlaw. And I think that's what's like super addictive and like icon making of her for me was the idea of like I can see all this. And instead of working within that system and being like, we can, change things on the inside, being like, I'm on the outs. I want to be an outlaw. I want to be the person throwing the bombs or changing this through like some direct action or like outside of this. I don't want to be part of this fucking system. And like she puts forth kind of a intellectual, visceral, upsetting case for why that makes the most sense as a mode of living and of being alive in our like world. So like I'm really that's always been one of the things that most appeals to me. And like for you, Kyle, where you're like, don't like this, I like it for that same reason that you don't like it, simply because it is like a middle finger to all of the crazy like old school literature that we had to read in English classes.
Right.
I'm always wanting to be that middle finger. I mean, if there's an author that's more tattooed on my soul of like dissent, it's probably her.
Did you,
I did recently. Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna ask, did you feel like you were rebelling when you first started reading Acker?
Oh yeah, 100%. We're reading like I was reading Great Gatsby for the fourth time. All these things are good books, like the Hemingway stuff. We didn't read a single. I'll tell you a story. So we didn't read a single thing, in college newer than 1950 until my contemporary American literature class, which was my final semester. I did take a class on revolution, and we read like The Demons by Dostoevsky, and I forget what else is in there. Oh, Princess Casamassima, by Henry James. Things that were like about revolution, blah blah blah. But I had read this, and I actually on our like survey form at the end, like the evaluation form, said that this book should have been included because this is the only book that was about revolution. That these other books were like, like not BBC productions, that's what I'd say today, but we're like documentaries of things instead of about the thing itself.
Mm.
What about you, Brian? Because you had read Acker previously, right?
Yeah, just two things. I primarily just because I had heard, folks talking about it as like countercultural, which I was interested in. And it was I read during my MFA. You'd go to readings and stuff up in San Francisco and stuff, and you could get exposure to like weird zine style literature. And there were a lot of like Kathy Ackerlites, I guess we can make up a word. There's quite a few Ackerlites. Mostly like kind of like it was mostly like butch folks were super into her.
Hmm.
And so like they probably like hanging out with them turned me on mostly to wanting to read it and check it out and see what it's about. Um, which again, like I was mostly reading like stupid, well, I shouldn't say stupid, but like your typical like white guy MFA short story stuff, like Kevin Brockmeyer and Paget Powell, like Saunders et al., like all that kind of stuff. A lot of like New Yorker, Harper's, electric literature, like that kind of. And so to read something that was like actually electric was kind of interesting.
It,
Um,
it's like that idea that like when you're asking about that kind of too, like in college, like this, I would have read this when this was only like 7 or 8 years after it was published, like which is not that long at that within the greater scheme of things. But a lot of the stuff there, like what you're pointing to Brian, is safe. Like that stuff is
yeah,
safe. There's
totally.
nothing that's like you could be like, oh, you can't use that word anymore, which is like a bullshit sort of argument, anyways. But like whatever, like possibly, but generally speaking, all those authors are safe. Um,
Mhm.
and this had never felt safe. Reading
And they're
Kathy
all
Ecker did
very
not feel safe
good.
at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, and it's like, it's kind of like cinematically, it makes me think of like Steven Spielberg doing The Color Purple. Like, that's really cool that you want to make that book into a movie, but I don't think you're the right dude to make that movie because you don't know how to go there and you're afraid.
I
And you watch that movie and it feels like it pulls all its punches. I'm just trying to pick an 80s reference. I don't know
no,
when that
I got a
I don't
funny
know
joke.
when the film The Color Purple came out. I'm assuming it's probably around this time.
The first
I'm trying
one,
to make it, what's that?
the first one, 1985. There's two
Okay.
color
Pretty
purples.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they remade it in 2023. I think
Oh
Oprah
no,
is in
yeah.
both of them. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean the Steven Spielberg one though.
The one in which he told Oprah if she gained any weight, she might not keep that role,
Oh
which helped out
wow.
with her being a diet grifter.
The only thing I can remember from that whole movie for whatever reason was I remember I was watching it. My mom wanted me to watch it as a kid. She says really important. So we watch it, and I just remember Danny Glover cutting his hand trying to cut biscuits is in that
Okay.
movie. And like every time I would cut biscuits, I remember like, oh, don't do it that way. Danny Glover cut his hand. So it taught me how to safely cut biscuits in half, which is an important skill to have. But no, you know what I mean? Like Spielberg is a very safe
Yeah.
director, and then he wants to like do something a little more um like he wanted to edgy's not the right word, but like he wanted to go to some uncomfortable territory.
Hmm.
And so and like he made a fine movie, but it's like and I feel like yeah, there's nothing safe about her.
And she
It's
lived this in certain
it's
ways.
very it feels very unsafe and it's very unsettling to read. And I don't want to be here very often, but it's nice to like remember that this exists and that it can exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a nice palate cleanser.
Yeah.
What's funny is that I keep bringing the book to either the gym or to
The random gym book to be
yeah.
reading.
Yeah, well like to the
I
gym like
did too.
when I'm biking to warm up, you
Yeah.
know. No, but wait, it gets better. I'll take the book to the gym or even to our kids' karate class because it's a half hour. I figure I could get a little bit. And I mean, you can't tell by the cover that there's anything, you know, but
Every
I
other word is
do.
cunt.
Yeah, I do. Every time I bring it with me out into public, it does cross my mind. Is someone going to come up to me and be like,
I don't know if I said this on.
You're reading that book here, but I mean, I don't think,
I, yeah, I don't
which
know
is
if I said
weird
this on the podcast,
yeah.
but I started reading it in the Abu Dhabi airport for this podcast because we had done the last James before I was on my way home, and I thought this is like a weird act of rebellion because this is not the place that cares for any of
What
this.
is it? Is it the all capitals? Allah's name is fuck, or what is that? What is the line? That's the one that's gonna get you in trouble.
There's like, I mean,
It's like in all capitals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anywhere out of
top of
this reality,
158.
please fuck. Allah's name is fuck. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would have been one that would have gotten my hand cut off. No,
Uh,
no
Sir,
Glover
what are you
style
reading?
cutting.
Oh,
Like
just some American trash. Don't worry about this.
Yeah,
that was
Empire of the
Nothing to
Senseless. Yeah,
nothing to see here.
it's about
about the
sheep.
corruption of the liberals. That's what it is.
The corruption of the liberals. And the language thing is the other thing that I really liked in here, where in the actual book, it is on page 163 is where it starts, where it's talking again about like the New York City, my home, liberty, who do you hate more, boy, N word or Arabs? I think you hate Arabs more. Once your deep culture is black, now you're becoming Arab. The ceiling of languages is falling down. Either add to this rubble or shove at least some of it away. Liberty? Shit. The liberty to starve. The liberty to speak words to which no one listens. The liberty to get diseases no doctor treats or can cure. The liberty to die in conditions cockroaches wouldn't touch except to die in. The liberty to be an 83-year-old Ukrainian shuffling around in her slippers among the cat shit in the slum building hallway. Is there a landlord here? Is there light anywhere? That called back to me of the Confidence Man. Like that's like the ending of that just shuffling out. But then the next section, demolition. What is language? Does anyone speak to anyone? Is language computer language, journalese, dictation of expectation and behavior, announcement of the allowed possibilities of reality? Does language control like money? And that goes into like what I was really obsessed with in college, like the Whitehead, Gertrude Stein, Henry James world of like, how do you communicate outside of yourself? Like, how does language work really? Like, in terms of like representing like what you are and how that is perceived was something I was like always very fascinated by and still am. And I'm back to proofing Making of Americans right now by Gertrude Stein. And again, reading that, I'm like, this is fucking Kathy Acker. Like, this is the same thing. She doesn't say shit and piss and cut and fuck all the time like Kathy does. But what she does is just repeat things and show you like these structures over and over and over again that are like language based, are like class based, just go on and on and on. It's like I got to a section today that's like, here's why people don't like repetition and why I find repetition fun. Let me repeat things. So it has a little bit of that, but there's a lot of like, at your bottom nature, you're this, you're an aggressive, and aggressive makes this. This person's like this. I'm going to tell you how everyone is. Everyone is this. It's this plain, flat language that sort of defines the world and like these terms that are like too broad, like they're too broad to be like a character or like too specific. But once you keep using them enough, you're like accumulate meaning where the reader is like, I get what you're saying. I know what you're saying. But then you can puncture that by just being like, I don't know that you ever can. I don't know that you can ever understand another person through language at all. And so, like, where are we with our rebellion and our community? And, like, how do we find a safe space outside of, like, these structural problematic things. Like the structure of wealth is really, really, really bad in our country in particular. The way that like the CIA and the government operates is very, very, very bad on everyone. And the way that like people use language to confine and harm other people, both on like a macro level, but also within like individual relationships, the oppressor's language can like really destroy like anything between any connection between people. And like she's just sitting in that area trying to explain that but like doing it within some of the confines of the medium of literature where you have to have like quote unquote character or like a situation or setting, but then also like being able to puncture that with like the direct philosophical questions that are brought up. I mean, that's why I mean I just find that I found this section like just you know electrifying, to use one of your words from earlier, Brian.
That's true. I don't own electricity. You can use it. It's totally fine.
I mean, now it's going to cost 25% more coming from Canada.
I'll
I'm
I'll rent
gonna
it at
not
you at
own
a
shit
good
of
price.
electricity. I have no electricity. I shut off all my electricity.
Might as well. I keep seeing next door neighbor posts about how the RG&E bills are like $400 a month for people.
Mine was 225, and like I have a 3 bedroom apartment with 55-degree setting, and it's springtime. Like, and there's like one light on at any point in time, and it was $225. So yeah,
Yeah,
RG&E can get fucked too. Why don't we burn them down? Why
absolutely.
don't I go pirate on your ass?
Bring big coal into the picture again.
See, you're starting to sound like the male Arab on page 167. The USA is a dead nation. It's devoid of dreams. The USA has destroyed all that we call human life and substituted religion. This religion is worship of money and blind faith and stupidity.
100%. That's what I'm sounding like. Like I have that one marked as well,
Yeah.
obviously. But then it does start to present two paths. One path being piracy and being a pirate, not
Mhm.
piracy, I suppose, but maybe piracy as well. But pirate life. Like you're out on the, like you said last time, Brian, like you're out on the ocean, there is no land. You're free from certain confines. There's the idea that like within that ship, anyone can do anything and anyone can be free. But within that ship, there is still like some sort of hierarchical nature. And then the other being like she describes all this motorcycle gang stuff of like the motorcycle gang and the dream being like very appealing and very much like get on the road, ride, you're free,
Also, freedom, though.
freedom.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is where we're to our Huck Finn moment.
Mhm.
Like, how do you alight into the territory? Isn't there a line in this book or in this section that says something about like I might be mixing all of my books up right now that I've been reading, but um I thought there was something in here of like something about like everything is about getting free. Oh, that's yeah, it's for next week. Sorry. I'm a little ahead, so we'll save that. We'll save that. But but yeah, that's what I really liked about this when you asked that as the beginning. I found this part to be like the culmination of everything we've had so far. Although I do think that in some ways, like Kathy Acker's books work as a constant culmination of what came before. Like it's just like the next iteration of that, the next movement, and not really like circling. It circles back in some ways, but it really just keeps coming like yes, here's this. Yes, here's this. Here's the next thing. Here's where we
Mhm.
move. Everything's about motion and being in motion and not having a beginning or an end, just being in that middle all the time
Mhm.
and burning down RG&E.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see where this ends up going with Pirate Night because I feel like that choice makes so much sense. Um, it reminds me of gosh, I can't remember the book part of it, but I remember the movie part of it for Children of Men,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
right? If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's awesome. I'll spoil the ending for you right now, though. Uh, but the movie's like 30 years old at this point, so
Yeah.
you should have seen it by now. It's like 20 years old. But people stop having kids, and so society's falling apart, right? It's almost like you get a sense of like entropy with like everything collapsing. There's suicide cults, there's terrorists, there's like all sorts of stuff going on. There's religion, there's people hoarding things and being rich as everything's burning down. It feels very similar to some of the settings we have here.
So you're just
But
you're
the
just
way,
describing the news feed from the last few.
yeah, it sounds like the last week. Uh, but the final image that they use cinematically is getting off of the land and getting out into the ocean and onto a ship,
Yep.
right? It's that same idea of like if all the foundations are crumbling and there's no footing, then get off your feet. like get onto the water.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like there's a similar movement in both those pieces, both here and in Children of Men. And I think it's an interesting like philosophical idea of what that actually means.
Yeah.
So, and it seems to be the answer for uh, collapse.
And for the, yeah, it's
I mean,
interesting.
you can go all the way back to like Noah and Gilgamesh, and right, like if everything is destroyed, it's a ship that ends up being like when like you flush it all.
I mean, that's the new trope would be the science fiction of like the eternity ships where they like
Hmm.
escape the destruction of Earth by building a ship that will live on for 10,000 years by like creating its
Yeah,
own like
yeah.
breeding nature. Uh, yeah, absolutely. And like,
But I think with Acker though, it's more about actually being a pirate than it is about that idea of like having like something floating outside of like what would be a normal like foundational grounded society. I think it's more about the idea of what it is to be a pirate, to like to shun those rules and create your own rules.
yeah. Although, okay, so I think that there's like a thing that maybe we'll have to disentangle next week that is problematic is that both originating in San Francisco, if you count her as like a San Francisco sort of inspired artist at this point in time,
Yeah,
is that piracy and then seasteading. Like the Peter Thiels of the world want the same thing that you're describing. We want to float out
correct.
in our own world with
Yeah.
no rules. Nobody can stop us from doing what we want. And like that a kernel of that is in here, but kind of not because her piracy is about movement and about like interaction and
She doesn't
their idea
strike
is
me as
different.
like libertarian
No, I don't feel
because there's
like
like
it
that,
either.
because there's like that libertarian slant to it that you get from like the tech bros.
They don't fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
This is much more like Blade Runner piracy, right? Like somewhere between Blade Runner and like Mad Max. It's not yo-ho-ho piracy.
Her piracy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like fucking too. But like, I why not? I mean, seriously, why not? Just fucking get good at it and enjoy it. Like, who gives a shit? But like, I think those two are different. But you could use this as a argument for the libertarian thing so far.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I'm curious to maybe to explore that a little bit more on the next episode. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I don't think that Peter Thiel has ever read Pussy King of the Pirates, though. I'm pretty sure. Gone on a limb there. I've said a lot of words you're not supposed to say on this podcast, but they're all within the context of her. I do have a James moment for you, actually. Is that I marked this specifically because I thought it was the closest to like the James world. Is on, I don't, damn it. On mine, it's right before Escape to the Angel of the Dawn. So it's page 168. Says the people whom the CIA forced to live in prison are evil because they're insane. They live in dreams. Let our madness turn from insanity into anger. And I thought that kind of resonated with me with the end of James of like let's turn this into anger.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear any of that? Because I
Yeah, and I
froze.
heard it. I was looking, I think it's 168 in the book.
Yeah.
Um, no, I hear it. I'm thinking that I'm amazed that you guys are drawing any parallels to anything else. Just because I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why I haven't drawn any parallels to other things that we've been reading, actively, but I just think it's interesting. I think that's cool. And that's good. That's good. Just it's not my brain is not firing in the same ways.
I mean, it gets on like a writ large, like top level idea is that a lot of these books are about freedom. Like
Mhm.
how do you and Huck Finn's about getting free on the Mississippi. He pretends that he's dead to be able to like escape like the society that surrounds him that makes him go to school or and his father's coming. He's escaping his father. He's essentially trying to kill his father by moving away into this like dead land. James is trying to escape from being a slave and from being able to like free his family from that condition. And in this, they're trying to figure out how to escape from the powers that be being like the ones that control sex, money, drugs, and what was the other thing? Language. And all three books are like attempts at like how do you become free? And with James being the final result being like essentially like burn it all down. And this, it's like, yeah, we burnt it all down and we did whatever we wanted. Like in the Summer of Love, we fucked everyone. We did everyone was fine. Everything's all good. The moon goddess is gonna save us. And then the CIA came with their LSD and just blocked us into these prisons and then told Arabs they were bad and that blacks should hate them and black Arabs should hate blacks and everyone should hate each other and we should all kill each other because we're poor. And the rich took advantage of all that and now we're all trapped. How do we get free? And how can we explain this? I mean, it's sort of like the idea of like trying to argue with any of these fucking MAGA fuckers is like you can't win with language. You can never win with language. And I think that's a fundamental part of her what she struggles with is you can try and articulate these things and give a cause, but you can't really still escape.
It's interesting. There's like this brief moment of time, and it takes place, like you're saying, it takes place right after birth control and before AIDS,
Yeah,
where like maybe things can be all right. And it's all wrapped around, sexual expression and freedom, obviously, but like maybe things can be okay. And then the AIDS epidemic hits, and it's like, well, that went to hell.
what
And then it just, swirling down from there. And I think we're like Ecker's on the tail end of that with this book.
there's
She's in that mode.
man, the AIDS thing is so wild. Like they're listening to this podcast that was about the blood grift from Arkansas. Reminded me because they talk about AIDS in that point in time in like the early 90s. And I remember being in high school and having people talk about like it's okay for you to drink from the water fountain if someone had AIDS and drank from the water fountain. Like the knowledge that we had
Hmm.
about this like epidemic was so scarce and so fucked up and also like used as like a weapon against a certain group of people in a lot of ways.
Hmm. Yeah.
As everything is now. Also, we now have massive tariffs, by the way. I just checked the news. So there's 10% on every single good and like higher rates for countries that don't agree with Trump. So doing great here, guys.
Real
Let's
real time,
let's
real
maybe
time
go
watching the
to
prices.
fucking the sea. Let's all leave. Does anyone know how to make a boat? Let's just find
Yeah.
cannons. I would shoot cannons. I can learn how to use a scabbard. I'm scurvy is like 5 minutes away from me. Like, come on. Anyone want to pirate up?
Yo, Alex has been watching One Piece, and so he's like all into that sort of weird. They're not like actual pirates. They're just like they don't really do piratey things, but he's been practicing with those little plastic Ninja Kid swords, and he'll hold like one sword in his mouth and then whip the other two around, and he's pretty fierce. So
I'm ready
he's
to go.
ready.
I want to have a plank.
All right, I got to sign off, but I'll leave you with this quote that I really liked. It's on page 148. Um, Being tattooed shows a tendency for violence, property crime, and self-destruction or self-mutilation. There is a strong relationship between tattooing and the commission of violent, assaultive acts. The propensity towards violence in general may well be signaled by the violence these men have done to themselves in the form of tattooing. Some doctor.
I love that.
Amazing. Also my line of the week, so that's a good one for you to go out on.
All right, I'll let you finish up. I gotta get out of here real quick, though.
All
See you
right, bye,
next week.
Have a
Brian.
good time. We'll talk to you in a little bit. So I got some like, oh, wait, that was your favorite line?
Yeah, that's one I had marked as well.
This is my favorite line is obscene because why not? This is the one that's open on my
Because of
page.
course instead of why not. Not why not, it's of course.
I mean, if you're this far deep into 2 and 3 view, I don't know what else you expect. So
It's true.
this is when she's seeing the people at the end of this, which I thought was really interesting, is that the motorcyclists are all there. There's they and notes that like several of them are women, and this is important. And then describes women through the shape of their breasts generally. But the part that I like is giant nipples are made to be hidden in mouths. They should be outlawed. Their owners should be restrained into hiding them away because they lead to fetishistic behavior. But there are no more laws. She also didn't have any eyes. That's my favorite line of the book is she also didn't have any eyes.
Also didn't have any eyes. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So there's a lot of stuff that's been going on. We have Brian and I did a conversation with the writer Nicholas Del Banco about his new short story, well, his collected short story book, Reprise, and other stories that came out from Delkey Archive earlier in March, I believe. That's available on the Mining the Delkey Archive feed, which I'm linking to in the show notes. That is a relatively new podcast in this little suite of podcasts that's focused on Delkey authors and translators and books. So that's there, along with a few other things, including an ongoing series that I'm doing with Vincent Francone, or Vince, about the Irish books within Delkey's series. Next week, we'll be recording one on Teeth Marks on My Tongue by Eileen Battersby. So if you're someone who likes to read along with the book or with the podcast that's going to come out, that's the book that we're going to be talking about. We're doing that like every month. There's also forthcoming an interview with Edie Poppy and her translator about her new book and about her last book, Anatomy Monotony. We do also have, as open letter, we have two books that came out recently. We've talked about your translation triptych, Kaya, of the Latvian
Mhm.
triptych, still available,
For which there
um,
is also a podcast.
of which there's a podcast that came out last week, 2 weeks ago,
Oh yeah.
that is on the 3% podcast line, in which the 3% podcast has stuff that's related more broadly. It's not related to Delkey. It's not the 2 month review. It can be
Yeah.
open letter books. It cannot. It can be. It's more about publishing generally writ large. But the Latvian triptych, there's a really great podcast that you did an interview with Ian Gwynn and
Uldis Baloadis.
Uldis Ballo is that's the part I can't do. Uldis Ballo. I want to say Baldinus.
Baloadis.
Balodis.
Yeah.
Um, who all three of you translated the three books in the Latvian triptych.
Yeah.
Very interesting conversation. Really cool about like language, about the nature of how everyone got into it, the books themselves. Definitely worth checking out. So those three podcasts are ongoing, and you should subscribe to all of them. And they also come through the two Substacks, through the Mining the Delkey Archive and the 3% Problem Substacks, which are both linked to in the show notes as well. We do have two new books that are out this month from Open Letter that dropped like, depending on when you listen to it, they dropped this week on April 1st, 2025, are the two books that are Attila, one by Javier Serena, one by Aliocha Cole. The Aliocha Cole one was the one that was written first, and he was an experimental beyond Kathy Acker in some ways, but not as like direct in terms of bodies by any means. Writer from Spain, grew up in Barcelona, and killed himself after writing this book. The Javier Serena Attila is about Alyosha Cole figure, the end of his days writing this book and killing himself. So both of those are available. I do want to say that one of the former guests on the 3% podcast, Justin Murphy, he texted me today that said that the quote, "This Attila gamble is the Chad Postiest thing I've ever seen in my life."
Awesome.
I do appreciate and want to call out here. I'm not sure if there's any other things. Kaya, you got anything that you want to plug or hype up?
Um, I mean, no, just check out the Tillas. Is a fun little April 1st release. Yeah, you covered everything.
Excellent. And Cardinals are 4-2. They are going to surprise everyone and win 83 games this year. I'm going on record right here saying that is slightly higher than projections, but I don't want to talk about how it's easier to believe that you're going to win four more games than you're projected to win than to lose four more games than you're projected in. But I think that's the case. Otherwise, we also do know what our next three books are going to be, but we'll announce those next week for the 2 month review. We have the next three planned, and we're going to have some one-offs in the middle. That should be very fun, and we're going to keep that all up. So next week for this podcast, for the 2 month review podcast of the three podcasts, we'll be reading the end of Kathy Acker's book, Empire of the Senseless. So up to end, whatever that might be, if you're reading
To
electronically or not.
I will change my line of the week just because it could be read in a few ways, but my second favorite is page 174 of the book, one of the many illustrations where it's two fish and it just says dead fish, fuck. And I like to read it as dead fish, fuck.
That's funny because I read that as dead fuck fish.
Oh, dead fuck fish. I liked it. Yeah, I liked it as like, yeah, just like dead fish. Fuck.
Oh, by the way, I got a tattoo, that tattoo on my back last weekend.
Baller.